A very good morning to Mr. Buffett and Mr. Munger. My name is Rajesh Vora from Bombay, India. I have been learning a lot from annual letters of yours. It's been a great insight into investment philosophy that I haven't learned from anywhere else. Great job. That's on the mind side, but on the heart side, what touches me the most is what you have achieved all these years is through 100% honesty, and I salute to that. Thanks. My question is on what key steps would you recommend to correct the mindset of typical investor like me, which is what you narrate as lemmings-like, the crowd mindset?
What would we recommend? We got the question being repeated here. About the mindset of an investor, is it?
He wants you to advise him as to how he can become less like a lemming.
Well, since you repeated the question, I'm going to let you give the first answer to that, Charlie. Until he eats about 1,000 calories a day.
He wants to invest less like a lemming.
Oh, I understand that. I was giving you the first shot at it. But I will tell you what changed my own life on investing. I started investing when I was 11. I first started reading about it. I believe in reading everything in sight, and first started reading about it when I was probably 6 or 7 years old. But for about 8 years, I wandered around with technical analysis and doing all kinds of things. And then I read a book called The Intelligent Investor. And I did that when I was 19 down at the University of Nebraska. And I would say that if you absorb the lessons of The Intelligent Investor, mainly, and I wrote a foreword and I recommended particularly chapters 8 and 20, that you will not behave like a lemming, and you may do very well compared to the lemmings. We have here in the bookworm copies of The Intelligent Investor, and I think it's as great a book now as I did when I read it early, I guess, in 1950. You can't get a bad result if you follow the lessons of Ben Graham taught in that book. I should mention that there's a book out there also that I did not know it would be completed by this time. My cousin Bill Buffett has written a book about our grandfather's grocery store called Food You Will Enjoy, and Bill will be out there. He's signing books. I just got my first copy a couple of days ago, read it, I enjoyed it a lot. Charlie worked at the same grocery store. How many years ago? Probably a good 70 years ago in Charlie's case. Neither one of us was very good. But my grandfather, you don't want to pay much attention to his advice on stocks. He wrote a lot of letters, and he was very negative on the stock market and big on hard work at the grocery store, so we quit listening to him. Instead, read The Intelligent Investor. That's the book that gave me the philosophy that has taken me now for a lot of years, and there's 3 big lessons in there which relate to your attitude toward stocks generally, which is that you think of them as parts of a business, and your attitude toward the market, which is that you use it to serve you and not to instruct you, and then the idea of a margin of safety, of always leaving some extra room in things. But the people in this room, I think, have learned that important first lesson. I mean, I think most people that own Berkshire do not see themselves as owning something with a little ticker symbol or something that may have a favorable or unfavorable earnings surprise or something of the sort. But they rather think of themselves as owning a group of those businesses that are out there in the other room. And that's the way to look at stocks. You'll never be a lemming if you do that. Let's go to number 2.
My name's Ed Boyle, and I'm from Chicago. My question's for Warren and Charlie. Do you ever have any plans, or would you be interested in buying a professional sport team or sports equipment manufacturing company, being that sports is in a global world today? Or is this out of the Berkshire game?
Warren's already done it.
I owned a quarter of a minor league team, but it's not responsible for my position on the Forbes 400. the answer to your question about buying a sports team is no. In fact, if Charlie and I, if you read that either one of us is buying a sports team, it may be time to talk about successors. Sports equipment has generally not been a very good business, although, obviously Nike's done incredibly well in its overall operation. But we own Spalding, we own Russell, and, Spalding has been around a long, long time. A.G. Spalding, I forget when the hell he was. I think he was trying to take baseball to the rest of the world back in the, 1880s or something like that. But it's, generally speaking, if you look at the people that have made golf equipment, footballs, helmets particularly, baseball gloves, baseballs, it's not been a particularly profitable business. And certain aspects of it, like helmets, the last thing Berkshire should do is own a helmet company. A helmet company should be owned by some guy that owes about $1 million and doesn't have a dime to his name, because, he is not going to be a target. And we would be the ultimate target. That's the reason we used to, but we had no interest in, and we got offered the chance to buy the whole place. And the idea of owning a business that provided guards at airports, when anything went wrong, you're going to say that it was the guard's fault. And here's this super rich corporation around there that is a perfect target. I mean, a guard company at airports, again, should be owned by somebody whose net worth does not get out to two figures. So that you won't see much of us in the sports arena. Charlie, are you looking at the Clippers? Or now I'm worried that he is.
Whatever Warren thinks about sports teams ownership, I like it less.
In an interview on April 23rd, 2014, about the Q&A session, Warren said, quote, "I hope we will get questions that probe at our weak points. My question is, what is our weak points and what can be done to address them?"
Well, that would spoil all the fun for the journalists. They're the ones that are supposed to look for the weak points. We have a lot of we point them out. I've just pointed out one. You probably, I would say, if we'd executed a sweep account for all our subsidiaries some years ago, we would have a few more dollars than we have now. Who knows what they're doing with some of those balances in terms of, it wouldn't be because we do riskier things, but we are very disciplined in some ways, and by ordinary business standards, we're sloppy in other ways. And a clear weak point of mine would be I'm slow to make personnel changes. I mean, I like the managers we have, and Charlie and I had a wonderful friend who couldn't have been a greater guy, and we were slow to make a change there. We loved the guy, and it wasn't killing us in our business. And how long would you say we went beyond where somebody else would have acted in that case, Charlie?
Well, I don't know exactly, but turning to the sweep account system reminds me of a friend I had when I was in the Air Corps, and he was a very skinny man, and he decided to give blood. And they put the needle into his arm, and the blood stopped flowing. And the nurse just started stripping his arm as though it were the udder of a cow. And he got the impression that they were going to get that blood where they took all he had, and he fainted. It was a very unpleasant occurrence. And I don't think a sweep account is all that pleasant to sit there and just, every little dollar comes in, somebody sweeps it away. I like the tone of our business.
Our managers are listening here. I mean, don't give them that illustration to use when I ask for money.
But I've seen people subject to Teledyne and Litton and those people swept every dime every day, basically. And it was a little more economic, but it created a tone in the company that, which I think is less desirable than ours.
We waited too long on managers, though, sometimes, Charlie.
Well, sure, you and I participated in taking one man directly from an executive chair into a Alzheimer's home. There was no...
You're hitting a sensitive subject here, Charlie.
We'd arranged that he could do no harm, and we loved him well enough so that we just made it easy for him. I've never regretted it, have you?
No, not at all. Not at all.
On the other hand, I want to be pretty careful.
We will be slow, and there will be times when what you might call our lack of supervision over subsidiaries, we'll miss something. Now, we think that giving our managers the degree of freedom that they enjoy will also accomplish a lot. So someone will come along someday and say, if you'd had many more checks and oversight and all of that sort of thing, something will happen at Berkshire, and they'll say that wouldn't have happened if you'd followed the procedure that some other company followed, and they'll be right. But what they won't be able to measure is how much on the positive side we have achieved with dozens and dozens of people, because we gave them that same sort of leeway. I mean, we operate differently in terms of the level of control and supervision. We don't have a general counsel's office at Berkshire. We don't have a human relations department at Berkshire. And that would be almost unthinkable to other companies. And we're not saying that's a 100% benefit in all ways. We think on balance it's a benefit. But when the downside of such a procedure shows up, people will say, well, you should have done it differently, and you should have been spending lots of money all over the years and restricting the activities more of your subsidiary managers and so on. And our reaction will be that they are wrong, but we will look bad in that individual case. Wouldn't you say that's true, Charlie?
Yeah, by the standards of the rest of the world, we overtrust. And so far, our results have been way better because we were carefully selected people because they were going to be overtrusted. And it's worked very well for us. And I think a lot of places work better when they create a culture of deserved trust. And that's been our system. And some people regard that as a weakness. And this modern accounting treatment, when everybody's measured on internal controls, I think it's going to do more harm than good.
See's Candy is obviously small in the context of Berkshire's currently expansive operations, but has long been one of your favorite businesses, and no wonder, given that its pre-tax profits grew consistently from less than $5 million in 1972 when Berkshire acquired it to $74 million in 1999. However, since 1999, profit growth appears to have stalled. Can you explain why See's was able to grow its profits through the 70s, 80s, and 90s, but not so far in this millennium? Did something change about the business, for instance, the growth in demand for boxed chocolates or its market position? Could you or Brad Kinsler discuss whether the relatively recent geographic expansion could help reignite See's growth? Thank you.
Yeah, the boxed chocolate business is basically not growing. I mean, if you go back 100 years, each city of any size was characterized by lots of candy shops. Chicago was a big leader. New York was a big leader. Believe it or not, the predecessor company to Pepsi-Cola was a company with the most, it was a company called Lofts, that had the most candy shops in New York City. It was a candy shop company originally. A fellow that, what was his name? What was it? Frank Guff. Yeah. He acquired Pepsi for a few $1,000, stuck it in Lofts, and the corporate corporate name, if you go all the way back on Pepsi, is Lofts. So there were loads of candy shops around every place, and including in Omaha. Box chocolates have lost position dramatically, primarily, I would guess, to salted snacks of one sort or another, various things. See's has done remarkably well, far better than any chocolate company in the country. Russell Stover did very well for a while, very well, with a different business model. But, they ran into their problems as well. So we can't do much about increasing the size of the market. And we've tried a lot of ways, and we've tried moving out of our strong geography multiple times. I mean, Charlie and I looked at what we were earning in California in the 70s and said to ourselves, if we can do this in 50 states instead of one, we'll get very rich. So we tried it, and we didn't get very rich. It doesn't travel that well.
Well, sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. And you figure out whether it's going to work by trying it.
Yeah, and we've tried it many times. But so far, it's interesting. 2/3 people in the East prefer dark chocolate, 2/3 to 1/3. In the West, they prefer milk chocolate, 2/3 to 1/3. They like miniatures in the East. They won't eat miniatures in the West. There's a lot of different things. But in the end, there isn't a lot of box chocolates volume. And we've done very, very, very well in C's. And it not only has provided us with earnings that we've used to buy other businesses, so we've added lots of earnings power through C's beyond the earning power we've added at C's. But it opened my eyes to the power of brands, and probably you could say that we made a lot of money in Coca-Cola, partly because we bought C's, or at least in my case, bought C's because I'd understood brands to some degree, but there's nothing like owning one and sort of seeing the possibilities with it as well as the limitations to educate yourself about things you might do in the future. And in 1972, we bought C's. And in 1988, we bought Coca-Cola. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if we had not owned C's, whether we would have owned Coca-Cola later on. Charlie?
Yeah, there's no question about the fact that its main contribution to Berkshire was ignorance removal. And it's not the only big contributor to ignorance removal. If it weren't for the fact we were so good at removing our ignorance step by step, Berkshire would be practically nothing today. What we knew originally wasn't enough. We were pretty damn stupid when we bought C's. We were just barely smart enough to buy it. And if there's any secret to Berkshire, it's the fact that we're pretty good at ignorance removal. And the nice thing about that is we have a lot of ignorance left to remove.
Well, that's what happens when I call on them. Station 7.